Hey guys, on today's episode, we have Chad Lyncher and Adams Pritchard again. We are answering frequently asked questions that we get from individuals, families, and from social media. So it's a very inspiring and informative conversation. Tune in. Thanks. Welcome to Impacting Recovery Uncensored. I'm your host, Sarah Pritchard. This is a podcast where we dive deep into the real, uncensored truths about addiction, recovery, and everything in between. No sugarcoating, no judgment, just honest conversations that can help lift up the solution. So let's get started. Today we have our good friends again, Adams Pritchard and Chad Lyncher here with us. How's it going, y'all?
Good.
So today we were going to do something a little different. I think it would benefit listeners to just answer some frequently asked questions that we get. We've gotten a lot of questions on social media since we've started this podcast, and also just questions that we get from families that might be coming into Impact, or the actual individual, or even just like questions we get in the recovery community that could help the listeners learn more and hopefully help them. So does that sound good with y'all?
I like it.
Okay, so the first question I'll ask is, family members ask a lot, why does he or she do this to us? As far as like active addiction, why do they keep doing this? Why, the consequences, why does this keep happening, and why are they doing it to us?
Yeah. I was watching another podcast. I don't know if you guys saw this, one that our buddy Zach does, and he had a family member on there who had lost his son and finally realized that his son was not doing these things to him. His son was operating the only way that he could possibly operate. My dad asked me that one time. I was home. It was years ago, but I'd been sober for a long time. And my dad said, Chad, just explain why you did all that stuff to us again. I would be a fool to even try to explain that. The reality is that the alcoholic lives in a world that is all self-consuming. Mm-hmm. I can't, I'm in survival mode. I can't think beyond me and what I need. As terrible of an answer that is, that's the truth. We are selfish and self-centered to the core, and we are experiencing, and it's tough for the non-alcoholic to understand because they've never experienced it, but what we call insanity around the drink.
Right.
Our minds convince us that it makes more sense to drink than not to drink.
Right.
And it's very deceiving. It's very cunning. But our minds will make sense of it, however it has to.
Yes, I agree.
So I was trying to kind of think about maybe a way to put this into terms that like a family member would understand, someone that's not an alcoholic, not a drug addict. So we talk a lot about this no choice piece. Like I experienced the no choice over alcohol and drugs when I'm in untreated alcoholism or in untreated addiction, right? And it's going to I have to keep putting that stuff in my body to get relief, right? But a way that someone that doesn't have this thing could maybe kind of relate is like if we cut off their air supply, right? If they can't breathe, and like anybody listening, try to hold your breath for a minute, As soon as that minute's up, like the first thing you're going to do is like, oh, I got to get some air. I got to get some, and like that's the best way I think somebody can understand. Like that's what the addict and alcoholic is feeling like when they haven't gotten in touch with the solution, right? Like they are dying to breathe. They're dying for air. Once they go back to that air, though, it's weird.
Yeah.
So, if people can look at it like that, maybe then like can get behind that individual that's suffering from this to like lovingly push them into a place to where they can get some relief and get to the other side of this thing.
Yeah.
Sarah, I think what's probably helpful to families, at least a starting point, is they need to understand we're not partying anymore. the party ended a long time ago.
Right.
That's not what's going on.
Right.
I never woke up with any intention, like the people that love me are really going to get it today.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing everything in my power to keep that from happening.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're living in addiction, in alcoholism, it is a war. It is a battleground, and put it in that context. Like you're in an actual physical war. Imagine trying to keep your family happy at that time. Like, Mom, Dad, I got people firing at me right now. Like, can I call you later?
Right.
And that's kind of what's going on. It's way more intense than someone could imagine if they haven't lived through it.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I love that. Okay, next question. So he's sober, but he's still being a jerk. Is this normal? Is this a normal thing?
It shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But it happens.
Yes.
And that's what Adams was just talking about. That's untreated alcoholism. That's untreated addiction. Those things should start to change quickly. There should be, and some of it happens a little slower, but there should be a pretty significant shift that takes place where all of a sudden, wow, he's thinking of me first, or she's thinking of me first.
Yeah.
He never does the dishes after dinner. Like that stuff should start to happen. They should be more surprised that there's new behavior, and that should be real concerning when we see the same behavior, old behavior.
That's what I was thinking about. Is most of what I hear is that, like the people, like, man, like he was over here for dinner, he did the dishes, like he was taking the dog out. It's like all this stuff. We're like, what? Wow, like, and then when somebody's saying what you're describing, right? There's a problem. Reach out.
Yeah.
Like we're really doing this to help people, and so many people are asking us stuff, and like, I mean, there's a call to action here too. Like if that's the kind of stuff you're seeing, call us.
Right. Well, and if someone is being unpleasant, and they're sober, they don't have any other solution, like y'all said, they're gonna be uncomfortable. Like I wouldn't expect anything less, because you just took away my solution where I can be relaxed and calm and I don't worry about anything. And now I have nothing. I can't sit in my own skin. I'm going to be a little snappy and all these things. And so there, and even if you're experiencing that right now, like there's so much more to it, because I did experience that where I just was separated from the alcohol. And I was so, but if that was life, then like no one would be sober, because it's gotta be good.
And that's a nightmare for everybody involved.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So let's see. This kind of leads into our previous question, but so he gets defensive when we ask him anything about his recovery. Should we just leave him alone?
I was literally asked that question a few weeks ago about someone that I had been talking to. It was about the husband, and we talked for a little while. He was still out there in the free world, and she said, "Hey, I want to ask him this, and this," right? And she did, and he got really defensive. And I was like, it was not good. He's in the hospital right now, and actually is on his way to us. So like, yeah, it's not good if we're not open and not like, hey, I want to tell you about. Let me tell you about this stuff. You probably get tired of hearing about it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm doing the right thing, Mom and Dad should be able to say, what time did you get to the meeting? How long did you stay after? How many people were there?
Yeah.
Did you share? They should be able to ask 30 questions in a row and me be okay with it.
Yes. Yeah. And I get being defensive, again, in an untreated state, because it's so uncomfortable. But yeah, our families are allowed to talk about the most important thing in our lives and ask questions about it.
And we should be excited about it.
Right.
So that other things become back into our life. Like if we put that first, then family's there. Like, and we really are like all about the family. And
right.
All that. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Okay. All right. So this is more from, I mean, I guess we get this from families and the individual, but the individual saying, why have I been told I can't drink when alcohol's not my problem? My problem's drugs, or vice versa. And he's like, my problem, is drugs, or my problem's alcohol. So can I take Xanax and Adderall, etc.? Or my problem's drugs. Why can't I drink? What do y'all say to that?
I mean, I think about so the reason, like, anything goes back into my body, any kind of alcohol or drugs, right? It's going to set off this phenomenon of craving, this physical allergy, right? And then it's going to be game on. But if I just tell you straight up like that, like before we've done any work, if I'm like, hey, Sarah, you can never smoke weed again, you can never take Ambien, like, we're going to fight. I'm going to be like, yeah, right. Like, I'm going to go start smoking weed and taking Ambien. You know what I mean? But the way that I look at it is like, the way we've got to present this to people is like, hey, we're going to get you separated first. Like, get the stuff out of your system. And then we're going to present a couple things to you that if you do this stuff and really lean into it, you will start to experience relief that's beyond your wildest dreams. And once you get there and start to feel that, it's going to be so powerful compared to anything else you've ever experienced before. Once you get there, you're not going to need anything, right? So presenting it more like that instead of, you can't do this, you can't do that. I was told that for so many years. And every time they would tell me, like, well, you can't do this again, I'm just like, the second I get out of here, I'm going to do that. Don't ever come at me like that again, It never worked.
I mean, I didn't necessarily have the same experience as you with, like, don't come at me with this. But when someone was telling me, like, you can never drink again, I'm like, whoa, no way. That is way too scary. Like, this is the one thing that I can do life with. Like, I can't not have this in my life.
Right. So that's why it's got to be like, whatever that was doing for you when it was working, we got something better.
Yeah.
Just trust us for a second,
right,
and to see what happens.
Yes. Chad, any thoughts on that one?
We're seeking a spiritual solution. So regardless of what another substance does to us physically, once I put another substance in me, whatever spiritual connection I've started to access, the door closes. And the other thing I see is, let's say I'm an alcoholic. I don't have a problem with smoking weed. And so I start smoking some weed. I know the truth. I'm not sober. So who cares if I drink at this point in time?
Yeah.
One of my favorite things, and I just heard this recently, is I'm going to start doing something. Maybe it is what, my drug of preference. Maybe it's not. But I'm going to start putting something in my body. And they think they're the first person to think of this, but I'm going to continue to practice spiritual principles. I'm going to continue to wake up in the morning to meditate. I'm going to write an evening review at night. I'm still going to 10-step with people. It's insane. I've heard it a lot. Nobody's ever pulled it off that I've met.
Yes, I agree. And, I didn't understand and I didn't know, because alcohol was my deal. Never done drugs. I didn't know. I've never had a problem with pills. So, like, why can't I take Xanax? And they're like, no, that changes everything, And then, like, why can't I take Vyvanse? I don't abuse it, though I was not prescribed. But I was not taking it every day and all these things. But like you said, like, the second I take a mind-altering substance, I am shut off. And from my experience and what I've seen in a lot of other people, it will drive me back to my master, which is alcohol. So I may not abuse the Vyvanse or the whatever, but I'm going to get back to the alcohol. And that's what happened to me. And I see it over and over and over again. And there are people out there that can take certain things. They just might not be the real addict or alcoholic. I don't know. And
there's a lot of those people out there, and we're not, like, knocking them. Yeah. They're just different than we are. And it's like, Chad, I mean, there is to that question, there's a chemical, physical side, right? And then there's also that spiritual side. It's important to understand the chemical stuff, but, like, unless we have to get in touch with that spiritual, with the power right? Or we're going to keep going back to the and it's game over, right? But for someone that can't really wrap their head around that, well, why can't I do this? Why can't I? I'm saying that because, like, in my mind, I'm not connected to anything powerful yet, and I need something else to come in here and give me some power. So it's just like, try this first. Wait and see what this power does in your life, and then let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know this topic could ruffle some feathers with some people, and this really is our experience and what we see, what has worked and what hasn't worked. And that's what I'll say on that. Okay. So this is, I guess, from a family member. Will I need to walk on eggshells when speaking with him after treatment like I did before?
Kind of goes back to that one of those other questions you were asking about was like, are they getting defended? Like, no. I mean, if they're where we're talking about to this place, like, restored to sanity, position neutrality, safe and protected, like, you're going to be able to talk about anything you want anytime.
Yeah.
And we're still human beings. Like, there's still some, like, go talk to some random person down the street that's not an alcoholic or a drug addict about something they could get. But, then we have some tools when that happens to be able to clean it up, and then have a conversation. I mean, so that's why another reason I think we have a leg up on just regular people.
Well, that's what I was going to say. If someone is in recovery doing this work, regardless of what someone says to me, I have the tools to move through that and get past it. And our families are allowed to be able to say what they want to say because, again, what I learned is, like, no one has to change for me to be okay. And that is, like, the gift of this thing. And these poor families have been walking on eggshells for so long and are so terrified they're going to say the wrong thing or, quote unquote, trigger them to drink or use. Like, my goodness, now they're out of treatment. Like, please let them be able to breathe and relax and, like, talk to their loved one how they want to.
I don't think family members should have to adjust their life in any way at all.
Yes.
However, they should be encouraged to go do their own work.
Yeah, for sure.
And a lot of times, like, the addict or the alcoholic, right, that gets well, if somebody, that we're close with is trying to change some stuff, like, for us, we're going to kind of feel a little uncomfortable. Like, why? They don't need to do that. That's not necessary. Maybe I don't,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, next question. When do we kick him out or cut him off?
I was given 2 really good pieces of advice early on that has helped me tremendously with families. I think Adams uses these also, and they could contradict one another, but I think if you take both into consideration, one is it's your loved one. You got to do what allows you to sleep at night. And the other, which can often contradict that, but it's worth considering, do nothing to support their addiction and everything you can to support their recovery and them getting well.
Yeah.
That's the best advice. Chad told me that a long time ago. That's the best advice I've ever heard. Do whatever is going to allow to let you sleep at night, right? Go with your gut. Everybody's going to tell you something different. But, there are some really, some great tactics, tools, steps to take if you're kind of watching that and, like, what do we do? We're ready to rip the Band-Aid off. Like, there's a lot of, us, tons of other people that can help make that happen in a loving way to where it's not just like we're getting attacked.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's needed. A lot of times it really is needed because everybody's scared. Everybody's just, driven by fear, trying to do what they think is right.
Yeah. Nobody
is trying to hurt someone.
Right. Nobody knows how to handle this unless they have done it a handful of times, and most people haven't. And
Sarah, here's the harsh reality around that. You have a family that is terrified to cut him off because they're afraid he's going to die. And the harsh reality is he is going to die.
Yeah.
if that may be the last play that allows him to get well. And that's, that guidance is not just across the board. There's different circumstances, but we see it all the time that, family's their lifeline. Like, take their car, take the money they have. They make it difficult for them to live and continue to get high or drunk, and maybe they'll have a better shot at actually getting well.
Right. And so this question leads into what we've already been talking about, but we've already sent him to treatment once or several times. Should we send him again? And this kind of goes back to don't sport as addiction, but sport as recovery. I don't know. What do y'all think?
I mean, Ab's been to treatment as many times as anybody I know, so he should answer that one.
I mean, for people that are pretty far into this thing, pretty far progressed, it is really, really difficult to be in the real world and with all the noise, and to be able to. It's a gift. Can you do it? Yes, but it is such a gift. It is such a luxury to be able to be in a bubble, to be able to do this. But that, I can tell you one thing, like, if they've already done a bunch of regular stuff, just going and getting separated again ain't going to do anything. I mean, you have to get separated first, but then they got to go back out there and do it again. Yeah,
well, and I think a lot of families are worried, like, I've already, paid for his treatment or whatever. We're cutting him off, no more. And that makes sense, but it kind of like when Tanner, who's on our team, was on an episode, it was about aftercare, but he was sharing his story about how his mom would still pay his bills and, pick up the slack wherever needed and really do everything. And he said she about loved me to death.
Yeah.
And his family was able to support him getting treatment again, but he was basically saying, like, if they would have not paid my bills and not paid my cell phone bill and given me the car, like, it could have potentially helped him get to a place of seeking help sooner. And again, every family is different, and there's different situations. Some families aren't supporting them financially at all. But I do think if there is a place when the individual is willing to get help and they need help, and to just say, like, go figure it out, it can be hard. It can be hard.
And this may come across is kind of harsh, but I'll tell you something that I watch talking to a lot of families. Some families are in a position to help their loved ones, and some aren't. Right. For the ones that aren't, there are some things out there that they can seek out, like they get some guidance, like to still help their loved ones.
Yes.
What I see a lot that really breaks my heart is there's a lot of families that are in a position to help their loved one in whatever way they want, and then they want to. We're not gonna, like, it's somebody else's problem.
Right.
And I'm draw the line.
I'm just going to tell you, like, this is what I believe, and you can come at me or not. There's spiritual laws out there, and those people, I've watched really sad things happen. It's just like, if you're in a position to help your loved one, do it. Like I mean, I have kids. I would send them to treatment 10,000 times if I had to.
Yeah.
Right. But thank God I know enough about, like, what's good and what's not.
Well, and I think you make it.
The only reason I'm still alive, I'm sorry to cut you off, I would be dead if my mom took that approach. She was the one that kept going 17 different times to finally get me in a spot where I got something different and it saved my life.
Yeah. And I think you made a good point where, of course, everybody's financial situation is different. But what is important, the most important for the families, is that there are resources out there, Chad, as you mentioned earlier, for them to get their own help. And then they can actually have, like, professional guidance and coaching on what they should do. Like, we don't know. There's not a one-size-fits-all for all of this. But for people that just don't know what to do, or whatever you've been doing isn't working, there are professionals out there to help. Like, there are really good people that can guide you through this. And I think there's so much shame around what's going on within the family and all this stuff. But there's so many people out there experiencing this. I mean, I'm sure you guys experience this a lot. If I sit down next to somebody on an airplane and I'm like, I'm in recovery, they're like, the next sentence is like, my uncle, my sister, but nobody talks about it because why would you?
Yeah.
But I want to encourage families to seek out more help than whatever you're doing. Because if what you're doing is working, amazing. But if it's not working, there's a lot of people out in the world that would be willing to help, and I just think that that's so important, because sometimes it is hard to pick up that phone and reach out,
and talk to multiple people and
Yes.
see what sits right with the gut, because there's a lot of bad information out there that I hear families come to me with all the time. Well, so and so told us this. Like,
yes.
sorry.
Well, and I literally said that yesterday. I was talking to someone, and I'm like, it's kind of like finding a primary care doctor or a dentist, or you might not find the right one right off the bat. You might have to seek out different stuff. But that is because the families and the loved ones have a right to be able to be okay, even if the loved one isn't. And they need healing. And it's really easy to focus on the addict or alcoholic because it's loud and it's drama and it's scary. But they need their own healing because they've been through so much with it. So,
And one more piece of guidance I can give the families, and it's really pretty easy to determine, does he or she want help or do they want a break?
yeah.
Because there's lots of different kinds of help out there. And what I see a lot of times is the idea of treatment gets brought up again, and the family's like, we paid $100,000 for him to be here and $50,000 for him to be here. And he's asking, like, I want to go to treatment, but I want to go to the luxury
Yeah.
spot. Like, at some point, state-funded treatment's got to be on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's, if I was a family member, I'd pay attention to that. If he's gone to the same place 5 or 6 times, you might consider trying something different.
Right.
And at some point, state-funded stuff and low-end treatment needs to be put on the table. The Salvation Army does great work.
Yeah.
And our kind of crew likes to hang out around those places, state-funded engines to help people out in the free world for fun and for free. So there are some good people out there going to help those.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Let's see here. Is it normal for my son to be so isolated when normally he's a social butterfly?
No. Because what this is getting us in a spot to do is wired back for connection. And if we're not connected with people, there's a problem.
And I think it can take some time. It's a lot uncomfortable when you first get sober, because it's just a different way to live your life. And there's a lot of figuring out stuff and trusting God and all these things that, most of us didn't live our lives that way. So, I don't think it's like a huge red flag, like, oh my gosh, he's isolated or just, not going out as much the first few days or weeks or whatever. But if this is an ongoing thing, then yeah, probably not super normal. Because from my experience, I wanted to go out into life even more. And because I was isolated for so long, it's like, I'm ready to get back to life and felt good about it.
Yeah. And also, like, when we're not altered anymore, like, we really kind of start to experience things like it's like new and different. Like, and it's actually about that experience, and it's cool.
Right. And, if we are a little isolated or pulled back at the beginning, hopefully we're in a recovery community where there's enough people to kind of pull us out of that, like, hey, let's go to dinner. Hey, a group of us are going hiking, or, like, that's what's so cool about the recovery community is there's things going on and there's things that you can get involved in and do. And if anything, get involved in your home group and do some service work. Make the coffee. Yeah. I remember I was birthday chair at our home group. I got nominated to be the person to hand out, like when somebody had a year or 2 years or 3 years, and I was in charge of going and getting the chips and making sure every month that we had the right ones for those groups or those individuals at our group. And they wouldn't have gotten their coin if it wasn't for me, the birthday chair, like
Special position.
Yeah. And so if someone there's just so much out there to be able to get involved, even when you're uncomfortable and not really knowing how to live without drugs or alcohol. I mean, my whole life revolved around that. Brunch, dinners, afternoon. I mean, it doesn't matter. So I didn't really know what to do. But if you engage in this process, God will show you and open up doors. And it's a whole big life out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, like this, a lot of times people get confused with like when we talk about service, we're talking about service with other alcoholics and drug addicts. But I'll tell you, like early on for me, like I was doing a ton of service work with other alcoholics and drug addicts, right? But then kind of also like to what you're talking about, like learning, finding new things to go do, like that's going to make me a better human being, right? And I was also like going and helping, they called it tutoring for these kids after school, right? Like in downtown Atlanta. I mean, I'm not a tutor. I had no idea but that was so rewarding and like so cool, right? But like, it's just going to open up other little avenues to do stuff like that, because we need some purpose, like you're talking about.
Yeah. What did you tutor them on? It's
Man,
news
like
to
we
me.
just really just had fun.
Yeah, I'm sure. Maybe basketball tips.
Talked a lot about rap and sports.
Mainly advanced calculus.
Right. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so next question. Is there anything I should or should not do to make sure my loved one doesn't get triggered?
No. There's nothing you should do or shouldn't do to ensure that. If he's going to drink, he doesn't need your help to do it.
Right.
And if he's not going to drink, probably doesn't need your help to pull that off either. Alcoholism, drug addiction just doesn't work like that. We've talked in previous episodes about triggers, and yes, you could emotionally trigger somebody. Any of us could emotionally trigger another person. But that's not – if it caused him to drink, he was going to drink anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And yes, we did talk about this a lot in, I believe it's the relapse episode. But yes, there is nothing that is going to make me drink. Because I drank when I was happy and I drank when I was sad. I drank when my boyfriend broke up with me, and I drank when I was in that relationship. As Adams likes to say, I got high when Alabama wins, I get high when Alabama loses.
That's right.
So it's and going back to what you were saying earlier, Adams, about us being able to breathe. It's our breathing. So there's nothing that's going to actually make me drink. And I want families to understand that, because there's so much pressure. They put so much pressure on themselves, and like family members are like, what did I do? What did I do wrong? Or what am I going to do wrong? You haven't done anything wrong, and you're not going to do anything wrong. Like, I want to make that extremely clear, because, and I get it. Like, being a mom, I second guess myself all the time. But in this scenario, if they are a real addict or alcoholic, no family, no friend, nothing is going to make them drink or use. Okay. Rant over.
I want to rant some on that too, but let's keep going. That was great. Y'all covered it.
Okay. All right. So we have this question a lot from the addict or alcoholic. Am I going to feel normal again?
I like that one a lot, because like the delusion that I'm under is that I was normal before.
Yeah.
I wasn't. Newsflash.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing my thing and I'm trying to live a quote unquote normal life, and there's a real like just kind of rub there. And so, once I get well and get to the other side of this thing, like the way that I'm going to be experiencing life is going to be new and different, right? And it's just it might be kind of like a shock for a second. Like, because if I'm, we talk a lot about like if you're asleep, right? And like wake up, like we're asleep, dreaming, we're awake. So like if I'm asleep and you come running, throw cold water on me, and like first I'm like, whoa, like wake up for a second. But then like, man, like I'm in the real world. Like I'm breathing air. I'm doing cool stuff. Like I'm experiencing life. Like it's eventually going to be amazing. It's just different.
Yes. Because I remember I was like, I just want to get back to the way it was. If I could just get back to the way it was, everything would be great. And now I know I'm a very different person. I operate on a very different level than even if you would have just taken the alcohol away from me. But to that question, I would say, yes, you will feel normal, but it's a new normal and it's a better normal. Any thoughts, Chad?
I think a lot of times we're asked that question just around physically, will I feel normal? The human body is amazing. And I have to tell guys all the time, your body will regulate.
Yes.
You will start to sleep normally. Your appetite will come back. You'll start using the bathroom regularly. Like the human body will take care of itself.
Yeah.
As long as we're not doing things to interrupt normal human functions.
Yes. Well, and that is a big thing, the sleep aspect, because when you don't get sleep, it's like so brutal. But eventually, like your body's gonna crash.
Yeah.
It
will.
Okay, awesome. All right, let's see here. Okay, so next question. He needs a car. Are we enabling him?
I mean, a lot of people need a car to do life. I mean, not everyone lives in New York City.
Yeah.
So I mean, time to go rebuild a life. You need the way to get around.
It goes back to anything to support his recovery, nothing to support the addiction.
Yes.
But he needs a car. We're thinking about buying him a Mercedes.
Right.
Maybe consider something different. He doesn't have to live exactly the way you live.
Yes. Well, and if you don't feel comfortable with them having their car, they can get rides from people in the recovery community to pick them up and take them to a meeting.
I thought like when you're asking the question, you're referencing like post treatment.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's just like you're going to know when the time is right.
Yeah.
They may need to do that for a little while to rely on some other people and figure some stuff out. But then when the time's right, you want to go get a big boy job, but you can't have a car, good luck.
Yeah. Yeah, that will be a little hard. But, and that's a good point. Like we've talked about this, but not directly, to lean into your intuition and your gut and go with what your gut is telling you.
And I'll tell you another thing. You're talking just to families, but I'll tell you what. Like I've seen people that don't have any family support that go rebuild it. Like God rebuild some stuff in their life, and they're busting their ass to try to put rides together and then all of a sudden like things just start building up and they get their own car and like you watch how rewarding that is for them. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, because we are very much focused on families because that's super important, but you can get sober, you can recover anytime, anywhere, with or without anyone in your life, and that's what's so beautiful about this process. Oh, I thought you were going to maybe add something. Okay. All right, last question. What does no choice mean? We talk a lot about no choice with addiction. It's a very confusing, 2 words, honestly. It was very confusing for me even when I was experiencing it. And we've talked about this on previous episodes, but I want to talk about it again because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I just want to hone back in on it.
So the no choice piece, causes controversy, not just between alcoholics and non-alcoholics, even within our groups.
Yeah.
The non-alcoholic, this is the rub. I've been presented that question many times. Like, what are you talking about? I have no choice. I was the one choosing to do this.
Right.
But I think when explained correctly, it makes sense. A choice is simply a decision between two or more options, right? Now, we have to take into consideration whether a person is operating with a sane mind or an insane mind. So with a sane mind, our choices look very different than that of a person with an insane mind, right?
Yes.
I don't have to choose or cipher through insane ideas. When I looked in my refrigerator this morning to get something to drink, I didn't consider drinking 409 under the cabinet. Like, I don't have to work through all that. I'm operating with a sane mind.
Right.
And so what a sane mind does is it eliminates all insane ideas. I don't have to consider those.
Yes.
The insane mind does the exact opposite. It eliminates all sane ideas.
Right.
So when we say we have no choice, all we're left with is the insane idea. So obviously I have some really sane and sound reasons to never drink or drug again. I love my family. I have a career. I care about my health, my freedom. Those are all very legitimate, solid reasons for me to never do this again. And when operating with a sane mind, those are always how I process information.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do this because I care about all these things.
Right.
If I get disconnected and the insanity returns, and the insane idea comes up, like, I think I can smoke weed. All those other sane ideas will be pushed aside, leaving me with just one, therefore no choice.
Yes.
It's only one option available.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I love that.
I like to rant about this. That was so much more eloquent, and I feel like I've probably talked about this a lot. So if it's like a broken record, but I'll try to slow down and maybe give you three examples. So like this untreated addiction that we keep referencing, and that's Chad talking about disconnected. When I am in that state, that's when I don't have a choice, right? Because I cannot experience life like that for very long. I'm either going to blow my brains out or I'm going to take a drink or a drug. And in that state, thank God for the alcohol and the drugs. When it gives me enough relief to be able to breathe again, we know it's going to turn on us. It's going to be great for a second. It's going to turn. It's going to get bad. And then that's time to do something, right? So I had this guy that I got to, have two encounters with, and met him this first time, and I was breaking this down for him, this 3-part problem, explaining it to him all, and he got it for a second. But all he got from that was, I have no choice. Like, I have no choice. I'm going to continue to drink, right?
Right.
And he did, okay? And then I remember talking to someone in his circle, and they were saying, but he's telling us, like, that he doesn't have a choice. And I was like, he got the context wrong, right?
Yeah.
But like the way that he was at that time, that was correct, right? But then I got, the opportunity to reconnect with him, show him that thing, explain to him, like, yeah, like when you're in this spot, this is how what's gonna happen. But like what we're trying to present to you is something that's gonna take away that internal discomfort, right? And when that happens, that's going to remove this part with the no choice. It's no longer going to be up to you. It's going to disappear, right? And then because that's going to happen through getting connected to that piece, right? That powerless piece, that unmanageability, then get driven through the rest of the work. And when I get driven through the rest of the work, the obsession, the no choice, whatever is going to vanish, right? It's no longer up to me, because I also kind of want to look at it like this, like, I think God has no favorites, right? He loves everybody all the same, right? So if God loves me so much, and I tell you, which I have a problem with this, drug of choice thing, right? I tell you that my drug of choice is heroin, right? Then I'm telling you I can choose whether or not I'm going to use heroin again, right? Why is God going to put me in a position to where every single morning I have to wake up and am I going to use heroin today or am I not? Right? Like, God wants me to go out here and max out, be at maximum service, go be a part of the mainstream of life, not every second be thinking about, am I going to use heroin or am I not going to use heroin? That it's no longer up to me.
Yeah.
It's not of me, anymore. And a lot of times, like, it's also it's mispresented to a lot of people in recovery circles when you hear someone say, like, I woke up today and I have a choice today. I don't have to drink today.
Yeah.
That's not right. Either it's been removed or it hasn't. And when it's removed, it's no longer up to you. You're not choosing anymore.
If you have a choice, you don't need a
Right.
spiritual solution.
Yeah. And a lot of those people, unfortunately, hang out around other people that don't, and it's.
Well, that's a whole nother
Yeah.
episode. But yes, yeah. Well, thank you all for sharing more insight around that. Anything else you want to add before we close out today?
No, maybe this will lead to more questions that, are requested to be asked and answered.
Yes. If y'all have questions, you can always drop them in the comment section in this episode, and we can do a whole nother piece on this.
I also just want to say, like, this has really turned into a lot of fun, right? And I think our first month, 19,000 people watched parts of this, and like that's pretty cool, right? So thank y'all for letting us do this. And I want to say one other thing, like, will you move what does that say on your shirt there?
Oh, yeah. I got my first merch from my friend Jenna. She got me an uncensored sweatshirt.
That's
so
really cool.
Who knows? Maybe merch is to come for all
ask
of
us
our...
a question. We'll send you out some swag.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. And thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of Impacting Recovery Uncensored. I hope today's episode has inspired you, opened your mind, maybe even your heart a little bit. And if you found this episode helpful, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to follow us on social. We have all the links in the description of this episode of all of our social media accounts where you can get all the clips from all the episodes. But until then, keep making an impact. Bye, y'all.